guys, so welcome back to the Glow Collective. I have Amy Hanna here from RespectTeam. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you so much for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so we're gonna get started on our episode. Before we get started, I do want to take a moment to ground and set our intention for what we why we're here and just the mission and our intention for being here and why we're connecting and really what we want to share with all of our glow getters and just their take-home message.
Sounds great.
Okay, perfect. So, all right, glow getters, wherever you're at, I invite you to slow down. Put both feet on the floor if you want. If you're driving, just hold on to the steering wheel, drive safe and slowly, or pull over.
Keep your eyes open.
Keep your eyes open. If you're at home, if you have kiddos, try to have a quiet moment if you can, and just take a nice, slow, deep breath in. And exhale that out. And take another deep breath in. And go ahead and exhale. And I want you to just think about how your day's been, and if it's evening when you're listening to this, or if it's first thing in the morning, just take a moment to feel gratitude for this day and for our life and the gifts that we have here on earth. And I want you to think about someone you would want to send gratitude to and bring them to mind. And if they were in front of you, what would you say to them? And I want you to take another deep breath in and exhale that out. And I want you to take a moment to express gratitude to yourself. Yes, yourself. I think all too often we acknowledge others and we don't tend to acknowledge ourselves and all the great work that we're doing and really celebrate our wins and how hard we keep on chugging along. So take a moment to thank you for being here, for listening, for tuning in, because the words that we're going to be sharing with you are meant to reach you, and we are here to be inspired and to grow and to connect. And we do that for so many reasons, and just congratulate yourself for showing up and for doing the work, because that's all it takes. And all right, one more deep breath in and exhale that out. And then we're live.
Perfect. I needed that so much today.
Feeling better.
I feel so much better. I need to hear that on a daily basis. I'm just going to play that back to myself every day.
I'm right there where often I talk about transitions and to and from work before you get to work, when you're there over lunch, right, to the day we had ahead of us, and to taking moments to set the intention for now, right?
Yes.
And I say those reminders to myself because I need them.
Yes. And now you can say them to me, and I'll just repeat it to myself.
Right? So, all right, Amy, it's a real pleasure to have you on the show. It's been, Diana reached out and said that you had emailed us to connect and really share your mission and your passion for service and serving our community. So thank you for reaching out.
Of course. Yeah, thank you for accepting.
Yes, it's my pleasure. So why don't you share for our glow getters a little bit about yourself and what prompted you to start RespectTeam and what RespectTeam is?
Okay, so a little bit about myself. I am a mom of, I used to say 2 teenagers, but my oldest just turned 20.
Oh, wow.
So I'm not sure how to say that anymore. A young adult and a teenager, I'm not sure how to do that. So yes, so we have a little bit of drama in our house. I'm taking my oldest to college here this weekend, and
that's a big thing.
It is a huge thing, which is why I said today I definitely needed just that intention setting and net grounding today. So so I'm the mom of 2 teenagers. I am married to a high school youth pastor, so I work with teenagers on a daily basis. Of course, with the RespectTeam, we are working with middle school and high school students, and so most of my life is in the teenage culture. And
those are the rebel
the hard years. Yes, they really are. They were hard years for me, that is for sure.
Me too.
So there are times where I say to my kids, do not follow in my path.
Right?
Please be better than me. So so that's the majority of what I get to do. And but I also am the chairperson of the Women's Network here in Fort Wayne, and I love doing that. Today we had a big event, and one of my favorite parts of that event is we get to do a dance party at the end.
Oh, nice.
And so we play music, and I most definitely dropped it low on the stage in front of all the wonderful, yes, I mean, they're all corporate women.
Oh my God. Was this recorded?
We have a good time. Oh yes, of course it was recorded. Okay. It is on Instagram currently, yes. So we have a great time, and just trying to celebrate women here in our community, helping them to feel empowered and inspired and connected. And so that's another piece of what I get to do. And then I also have a clothing business that I do online with vintage clothing.
Nice.
So, yeah.
And what is the name of the vintage clothing?
It's called Classy Sassy Vintage Thrift. I'm a little classy and a lot of sassy.
I love that.
Yes, it's a good time.
So perfect. Wow. So you do a lot.
I do too much sometimes. Yeah, I'm learning how to say no. I'm learning how to be selfish in the sense of taking care of myself. Absolutely. And because I'm taking care of myself, then I can take better care of other people, which is a really hard lesson to learn because I have a tendency to be an overachiever. I like to stay busy, you know. So I'm learning that lesson.
So tell me, so I have questions to ask pertaining to each of those things.
Yes.
But why don't we first start with, tell us a little bit about your upbringing and how that has helped shape the woman that you are today.
Yeah, so brought up in a household of teachers. Okay. So my dad, teacher, coach, my mom, teacher, coach, my brother is currently teacher, coach. And I was a teacher. I was a second grade teacher for a few years, and then RespectTeam goes into the school, so I can kind of say I'm in education in a way, but more of an entrepreneur. So I'm a little bit out of the loop within my family, but so grew up in a household of education was very important. Sports were very important. I was a 3-sport athlete back when we could play 3 sports. Nowadays, kids just can't do that anymore. They have to focus on one sport and that's it. So,
I was too.
Were you? What did you play?
So golf was my main sport.
Really?
And then tennis.
Okay.
And then in the winter, I played basketball. Wasn't
really,
that great, but I have some athleticism. So
I cannot play golf. In fact, I played softball.
Okay.
So my golf means that I pick up the ball and I chuck it. I was a catcher, so I can throw really far. So no, I'm not good at golf. You can teach me how to play golf. And tennis, I mean, it's kind of like, hand-eye coordination. I'll try. But so I was actually a swimmer, softball player, and then soccer. So,
nice. Okay. Yeah. Completely opposite.
Yeah. But I loved being an athlete, and we grew up. Well, I was brought up in Illinois. For most of my childhood years, we moved to a very small town in southern Indiana. We moved from Chicago to a very small town in southern Indiana, and it was quite a culture shock for me. But
why did your family move?
Well, it was we kind of followed my dad. So my dad was teacher coach, and then he became a principal, then he became a superintendent, then he became a dean of schools.
Wow.
So the stress, I think, that came from those level of positions, he finally said, I just want to go back to just teaching and coaching. They were also trying to follow my swim career, and I had more of an opportunity in Indiana than I did in Illinois. So we moved to Indiana.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I grew up in the sense of my teenage years in southern Indiana. It was a good time. It was really hard to make a name for myself in there. Everybody had grown up together and half of them were related to each other, that kind of a thing. And so it was tricky, but I think because of that happening in my teenage years, it's what has made me so passionate to work with teenagers and to talk about the importance of valuing themselves and valuing other people and treating people correctly and treating themselves correctly too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's all so important, and especially as a teen, right? That's where we are so ultra sensitive.
Yes.
To others, ourselves, and we don't speak up. We don't know what self-worth is and self-love.
Right.
So what can you share with us a little bit more about like what some of those challenges were that really brought those lessons to you?
Yeah, so when I was in high school, I was, of course, a 3-sport athlete. I was a good student, prom queen, homecoming queen, junior miss, anything that had a crown, I was all about it. So kind of on the outside, seemed like I had my life together, but was really struggling with my mental health, struggling with my self-worth, was battling an eating disorder that most people didn't know that I was battling. They could kind of see there was something going on, but didn't quite understand it. Because I was dealing with the addictions and the depression and the self-worth, I found myself in my kitchen one day with a bottle of pills in my hand and contemplating whether my life was worth it. And in that moment, my dad walked into the kitchen and he saw me, he kind of put it together, and he did something that I had never seen my dad do before. My dad was a sergeant in Vietnam, man's man kind of a thing, and he walked in and saw that, and he started to cry, and he said these words to me, I'll never forget it. He said, "You might not see yourself as valuable, but I see you as valuable, and you cannot do this to yourself." And it just, for me, it just changed everything. It's one of the reasons that I am valuable tattooed on this side, and you are valuable tattooed on this side. It's a reminder to myself, it's a reminder to other people. And it's the whole mission of what I do with my life is to help teenagers who are struggling within their mental health, who are struggling with their self-value, struggling if their life is really worth it, to understand, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
You might not see it, but other people do.
Yeah. Wow, that's powerful. So it's, the things we go through, when you're going through it, it's a lot, but when we can see it from the other side with hindsight and with growth and compassion, it is life-changing, right?
Yeah.
I love it. So tell me a little bit more about, with RespectTeam, how it works with going into schools you mentioned, and is it something that's mandatory, like a class? Yeah. So if I were in high school right now.
If you were in high school, you would have us come for health class.
Okay.
So our speakers, they are trained speakers. Most of them are past educators. Some had communication degrees and those types of things. So they're fantastic, amazing, motivational speakers. Some are professional locally, some are professional nationally, and it's amazing. They get to come into the health class, and it's very interactive. We try not to be the type of speakers that stand up front with the PowerPoint and the clicker, It's very interactive. The students are doing partners and group work and that kind of thing. It's been a little tricky with COVID.
Yeah.
Things have changed a little bit with what we can do within the classroom. But for the most part, the whole purpose is for the students to get to know our speakers.
Okay.
Because for a lot of our students, we ask them, who are your trusted adults? If you're going through something hard in your life, who can you talk to? And so many times they have no idea. Wow. They don't connect with mom and dad. They don't feel like they have a trusted teacher. They might not have a trusted coach. And so a lot of times our speakers are their person that they feel like they can talk to. And it's amazing to me. We go into a classroom for an hour, and a student will come up to one of our speakers afterwards and just share their whole life story.
Wow.
Because they're just so desperate for somebody to understand them. And I train our speakers to share their personal stories, very similar to how I just shared mine. Things that they've gone through. Some have similar stories to mine, some do not. But every single one of them, because they're so open with their story, I think it helps the students to say, okay, we might not have the same story, but you get it.
Yeah.
You have something,
Yeah.
and I feel like I can connect.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we're here for connection. And,
Right.
you know, as you're sharing it, I'm getting like chills,
Oh.
like energy's flowing off.
Yeah.
And, you know, that is the whole mission, you know, with the Glow Collective podcast is for connection and service and spreading those values and helping others connect with themselves and others. And I love it. And just to imagine, right, someone, right, if you think you have no one to talk to, and there's a stranger that you just met, and then you feel right connected enough to share, that's priceless. So
Yeah, it really is amazing. And to date, because the Respect team has been around since 2015, so to date we have connected over 700 students to counseling resources.
Wow.
Just because they've come and spoken to one of our speakers afterwards, and then they feel like, okay, if you understand it, I can come in, I can talk to you. And then our speakers, of course, have protocol of, okay, let's get you connected to the right resources to help you through these different things. And so, you know, you start thinking about that.
Yeah.
700 students, that's a whole school, if you really think about it.
Yeah. Right.
So,
and it's not just that, right? That's one student in a family, right?
Correct.
And they're interacting with how many people. And that's, I mean, that's very, like, powerful.
it is powerful.
Yeah.
It definitely puts it in perspective of how important the work is that we do.
Absolutely. So you started in 2015, and who's part of your team?
Yeah, so our team has changed, ebbed and flowed here over the last few years.
That's how it goes.
It is how it goes. I tell my speakers all the time, I feel like I train them just enough that they start to realize how wonderful they actually are, and then they go and do bigger and better things.
Yeah, right? Well, it's like, that's a role I find, right?
It
is. And if you're empowering others to then step into a greater role, but it takes a toll.
It's so hard.
It's a lot to train.
Yes, I have a couple of speakers who have been with me 4 to 5 years, and I tell them all the time, I will do anything to retain you. So they're amazing. They connect so well. It's hard to find people who connect really well with teenagers, especially middle school students. And so if you can find people who have a passion to work with teenagers, who are also able to connect with them as a speaker, I don't want to lose them. So, yes. So we kind of ebb and flow with that over the last few years. But we have about 10 speakers right now.
Nice.
I'm the only full-time person. I don't do the speaking as much. I'm more of the training at this point, and the behind the scenes and the raising the funds and all the not fun things.
Yeah, but are so important, right?
So important.
So that you can spread your mission.
Exactly. And that was a huge learning experience for me, because I always thought in order for something to go well, I had to do it myself. Yes. And I finally learned, if I really want to see this organization multiply, I have to train other people. Yeah. And it turns out they're actually a lot better than I ever was. So it's very humbling.
Well, they're not judging things, right?
Right, that is true. Yes, they're amazing.
And that's an important lesson, where to ask for help, and that we don't have to do it all alone, which is what we think.
It's true, because I think especially as entrepreneurs, we have this tendency to think, well, they don't know how to do it. They're not going to do it as well as I'm going to do it.
Quicker, faster, more thorough.
Yes, and then
but you can't do everything.
You can't. You can't. You have to learn how to delegate.
Yeah. So another question then, so with this, so it's typically a speaker would come in and they just do one class. It's not like a monthly set thing that they're coming in and speaking with the students. Is that correct?
So it just kind of depends. With middle school, they'll come in just one time. Some of our schools are set up as semesters, some are trimesters, some are quads, so it just kind of depends. But typically it's just one presentation. However, because most of our schools are connected to each other, we'll get to see a student in 6th grade, and then in 7th grade, and then in 8th grade, and then in high school, and then later in high school. So that part is really nice, because we have a presentation for each grade. Gotcha. So by the time our speakers come back in high school, the students go, I know who you are. And we give free pens, and that's where they get very excited. Yay, it's the free pen people.
Well,
the little things, you know.
It is the little things that count. Okay. So how did you decide to start Respect, and especially within like as a business as well as that entity, how was it when you first started to get into schools? And because that's a big thing to enter the school system. And what are those challenges you had when you first started?
Yes, it was a huge thing to get into the school systems, and I truly feel like it was a God thing in our situation, just because to walk into public schools and say, hey, we have this really great presentation, and for them to say, fantastic, come.
That doesn't happen.
That doesn't happen.
That's what I'm saying.
It just doesn't happen, you know. So so we were very thankful, and I think our schools were realizing that respect is a huge thing. In order to help our students to respect themselves, but also that respect of other people, because we focus on respect in relationships, we focus on respect in friendships, and how do you respect your teacher when you don't agree with them? How do you have communication? How do you resolve conflict with your boss, with your parents? And it's life skills. It's things that they should know how to do, but
well, sometimes we don't learn.
Yeah, well, we're not always taught, right?
Exactly.
And nowadays, I don't know how much of that conversation is happening at home for a lot of our students, and so we're having that conversation because somebody needs to teach them.
Oh, absolutely.
So when they do graduate from high school, they know how to go into the world, how to have communication that isn't just like this, right? How to actually talk to people, and my boss handed me my paycheck and it isn't correct, and how do I go and talk to my boss and ask for a fix of my paycheck? And so just simple things like that. So I think our schools were realizing we have to learn how to communicate, we have to learn how to respect each other. And let's have these other people, because sometimes it's like the fun sub, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
The kids don't want to listen to the teacher that they have to listen to every single day. So then we come in and we're like, hey, and they're like, hey. So it just, it works itself out. So that's really how that started. So we started very small, just 12 schools.
Which is still a lot of schools.
A lot of schools, we had connections with all of those schools. And so we just started small. Word of mouth started to happen. And so then we went from 12 schools to 20 schools, and then the next year 25. And then so now we're in about 47 schools across 6 counties. And we see about 10,000 students each year.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It's a good time.
So what are some of the biggest things that you might see within, either difference in middle school or even middle school, high school, that you see that students might not want to talk about?
Oh, well, there's a lot of things teenagers do not want to talk about.
What would be like the top 3?
I think a lot of times, I'll share this funny story.
Okay.
So before the RespectTeam, I used to work for another organization, and my title was the abstinence educator.
All right.
Why did they give me that title? I would walk into the high school and my name tag would say Amy Hanna, abstinence educator. I don't know what they were thinking. Oh my goodness. So I begged for 5 years, please change my title. Please change my title.
So did they?
No. They did not.
Poor soul who got the title.
So actually that program ended, which is one of the reasons that the RespectTeam exists, because that program completely ended.
Oh, wow.
So our positions actually ended, but the schools were still contacting us and saying, but you've been doing this for 5 years. And so just to keep things legal, we said, we'll form a 501 and we'll just, go into these schools that we already have these contacts with. And we had no idea that it would flourish the way that it had. It was meant to be. It really was. So so that was kind of my first experience with that. But abstinence and talking about relationships is not something that students like to talk about in this sense of it makes them very uncomfortable. But after you get them talking, then it's kind of like, oh, I actually need to know these things. Thank you for teaching them to me, kind of a thing. So so it starts off with, I don't want to talk about this. It makes me very uncomfortable, and I don't like how this person is talking to me right now. But then it kind of gradually of more questions and I've been talking to this girl, and those kinds of things that you go, let's not go specific. So so that is one of those things. But I would say other things that they struggle a little bit with is just friendships, bullying. That's a big thing within our middle schools, within our high schools. I would say more so in middle school than in high school. High school, if it's a bullying situation, it just looks very different. I think.
In what way?
Back in the day, we would say bullying and we would think physical. Sometimes it's still physical. That definitely can still happen. But I would say because of social media, because of technology, it's much more passive aggressive. It's ghosting. It's not inviting them to certain things. Now they have where they can actually track each other and see where friends are at different locations.
Not tagging someone on social media.
I mean, it has changed. Everything has changed, and I think back to my middle school years, if we would have had social media back then, it would have been very messy.
Yeah. I was easily picked up and put in trash cans, so.
Were you? Were you actually put into a trash can?
It was like jokingly, but
we all know that it wasn't actually a joke. Oh my goodness!
Yeah,
were you little? Yeah. Were you tiny?
I don't think I was that tiny, but I guess I was probably a little. Maybe I was thin and
sure. And they thought, let's put her in a trash can.
Yeah.
Oh,
not head first.
Oh, well, how nice of them to be considerate.
So I was like, so not so much physical.
Yes, right. Nowadays, I mean, some of our schools, for sure, there's definitely some physical stuff happening, but I would say it's much more social now.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably pervasive, and we don't, right? Like,
it is.
And a lot of it can be in body language, how you say something, what you're saying, passive aggressiveness.
For sure.
And not directly communicating, right?
Right.
Because those are skills you don't know how to communicate them.
Yes. Well, adults struggle with that. So, of course, our teenagers are going to struggle with that, too. And I think, too, because they have that phone with them at all times, back in the day, if we were not being treated well at school, we got to go home. Yeah. We got to separate ourselves. Yeah. They don't get to separate. They take that phone with them, and it's still social media, and somebody's texting them. And so they never get to really turn it off.
Yeah.
So
what would you say, sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good.
So what would you say to our glow-getters listening then? I think we all had trauma of some sort, right? And a lot of it can be from younger years. What would you say in terms of communication would be 3 tips that we can do to shift into more effective communication with others?
Yeah, so we teach this with our teenagers, so I'll just teach this right now.
Perfect.
Okay, so the first step of respect and understanding how to communicate is knowing how to respect yourself first. So respecting yourself first just means seeing yourself as a valuable part of this world. It's very simple. Respecting other people says, okay, if I am a valuable person, then you must be valuable too. I don't have to agree with you. We might have different opinions, but because I am a valuable person, then you obviously have to be a valuable person too. Yeah. So once you come to that understanding, then you can actually have a conversation with each other, because it takes out the passive part, it takes out the aggressive part, and then it's, okay, I see myself as valuable, I see you as valuable, so now we have to have an assertive conversation. Yeah. So assertive communication is just basically looking at that person, having communication in the sense of calmness, which is very hard to do when you're very upset and emotional. We teach our students, it's called flipping the lid. Have you ever heard of flip the lid?
Tell me.
Okay, so this will be difficult for your people that are listening, but if they watch the video, this will make sense. Okay, so basically, watch the video
YouTube,
on YouTube so that you understand what I'm doing with my hands right now. Okay, so basically this right here is your brain. Okay, so you have your fingers and it goes over your thumb. So this thumb is your amygdala, so your emotional part. This right here is your prefrontal cortex. So this emotional, this logical thinking. For a lot of our students, this part is almost fully developed. This part does not fully develop until they're about 25 to 27, just depending. So for a lot of our students, and even adults too, anytime they come into a conflict situation, they flip their lid. So they're operating with emotion and not logical thinking. So it's teaching our students how to put their lid back down so that they calm their emotions. Once they calm their emotions, then they can think logically. So I think when we teach this to them, there's an understanding of, oh, that's why I do that. That's why I say the things that I should not say. And then when I calm down, I think I shouldn't have said that. Right. Adults too.
We do it too.
Yes, because we flip our lid and we think, why did I just say that to you? I have no idea why I was so angry in that moment. And once I calm down, now I'm a little embarrassed that I got that upset. So it's starting with that self-respect, respecting other people, seeing yourself as valuable, seeing other people as valuable, going into assertive communication, keeping your emotions in check.
And how do we do that?
In
the moment.
In the moment, it is so difficult.
It is hard.
It is so difficult. It's literally like teaching yourself how to stay calm. And keep that lid down. Because it's kind of like a boiling pot.
Absolutely.
And you can feel that pot, the lid of the pot just kind of...
My cheeks are getting warm as I think about it now.
I'm getting all upset. I'm flustered. But it really is like that. It just starts to kind of boil, and you almost have to turn it down. You have to turn it down to simmer so that it doesn't boil over. So
or
I think
let some air out.
But really, kind of, and that's actually a very good statement, because you can step away, let a little bit of that steam out. That's correct.
And then come back,
have that conversation, which for adults, I think we have a tendency to think, oh, I can have this conversation completely calmly. We still have emotion.
Oh, absolutely.
And so if we let that emotion get too riled up, we just can't.
You go past your no-fly zone.
And
you're gone.
And you're gone.
And you gotta reel yourself back in.
You gotta come back.
I find with, the girls and the team here, I think with communication, it's, especially with females, all females and emotions. And, I find with myself lowering my voice, slowing down my tone when I'm talking to someone, especially if I have to talk about some challenging things, is helpful. And then the faster someone else talks, the slower, but I have to give myself those cues. And more often we mirror the person we're talking to. So the faster you talk, I get riled up and going, and you have to write those internal checks to say, hey, you're okay. We're safe here. We're going to work effectively. We're on the same page. And I love what you said about I'm valuable, so are you. And if we both can come back to that, then we can reset and continue on. So I love that.
And I think when there's a trust relationship, that is so much easier. When there isn't a trust relationship, that's very difficult to do.
So establishing trust, right? And I think that's the point of seeing value in ourselves and others.
Correct.
And if that's missing, then
it's going to be very difficult.
We'll let's reschedule that.
Let's reschedule. I'm going to put you on the calendar for a month from today.
I love that. So, okay, so that was perfect. So learning about respect, going into schools, and having these sessions with kids and seeing the shifts over the years. What has been a couple of the biggest shifts that you might have seen, following someone through high school, or a couple of the big transformations you've seen?
So I'll share a couple of stories of some students. So the fun thing about what we get to do with the Respect Team, it's not just the schools. We also have an event that's called the 360 Awards. So we get to honor local high school students who are making a positive difference in our community. And it's really fun because it's not always your top athletes. your top students. It's just, in fact, we honored a boy last year who just gave another student in the school a pair of his shoes. Aww. Because he didn't have a pair of shoes, and so he gave him his shoes, and a teacher noticed it and honored him at the 360 Awards.
Wow.
And so it's simple things like that, but we want the students to understand when you do those simple things, it makes an impact.
Yeah.
And you can be honored actually for it.
Yeah.
So we have the 360 Awards, and then we have Teen Speak.
Mm-hmm.
So Teen Speak is very similar to TED Talks. And so we have our teenagers, 6th graders up to 12th graders, who they are trained by local and national speakers on how to be a public speaker.
Wow.
And so they have about 2 months of training, and then they stand up on a stage in front of a live audience of 150 to 200 people to speak their truth. And so they speak up, they speak out, they are empowered, they share their story of strength. And so they talk about something hard that they've been through in their life and then how they were able to overcome it.
Yeah.
It's very powerful, it's very emotional, it's very
feel it.
it's very healing for the students. And so there's this one particular student, she is now my president of my student board. Her name is KK. Her full name is Kindanine Kokanine, but she's KK to us. And so she is amazing. And she started off with just as an 8th grader in one of our presentations. And she said, oh, I really like this RespectTeam thing. And she got to know us a little bit better in high school. And then she said, I want to get more involved. She was nominated for a 360 award. And then I reached out to her after the 360 awards and I said, I think you should consider applying for Teen Speak. And so she said, okay, I'm going to do it. And so she was accepted as one of our speakers for Teen Speak. And up until the week before Teen Speak, she was going to talk about being kind of bullied and some different things that she had just really gone through in her life. But I could tell that she wasn't connected to her story or what she thought was her story. And she's Burmese. And so we were talking some of the different things that were happening within our world at that time and some of the things that were happening with our Asian communities. And I said, KK, this is an opportunity for you to speak your truth. Yeah. You have a stage of a live audience who wants to listen to what you have to say. And you need to speak your truth. Yeah. And so that week, she changed her entire talk. And she talked about what it was like being an Asian American. Yeah. And what that challenge was for her and how she was able to find strength in that. And watching her on the stage, you could just, it gives me chills just thinking about it. Yeah. But she just owned that stage and something clicked for her. And since then, she's now our student board president, and she's just running with it. And you've kind of seen, here's this little 8th grader just sitting in a presentation to now being the president of the student board.
Yeah, that's so magical.
It is.
Yeah, it is. And
she's pretty special.
I mean, and that it was giving an invitation, right? Often we're told, don't speak your truth.
That's true.
Blend in.
Yes.
Keep quiet.
Correct.
Don't ruffle feathers. Right? And to honor someone and acknowledge someone by saying, yes, speak your truth.
Right.
It's okay to, and we want to hear
We're
from
giving you a platform to do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's amazing. And I think more of what we can do in our individual one-on-one interactions to acknowledge each other more, right?
Yes.
And also, in larger groups or in the workplace, right?
Yeah.
So I love that.
Yeah. Thank you.
So what is your vision moving forward over the next few years?
That is such a hard question. I've been asked that a few times of, what's your 5-year plan? And I always say,
where would you love to see?
I struggle with that just a little bit because I never know if I'm dreaming too big or if I'm not dreaming big enough, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
and so I think for me, I would love to focus on Northeast Indiana first. So we're in 6 counties, but we're not in all of the counties. We have a few schools that would love for us to come in that we just haven't been able to come into yet. So I think making sure that we have a presence in every single school that wants us to come, first of all. Second of all, spreading it out in that Northeast Indiana. And then after we spread out in that Northeast Indiana, then we can start to kind of move our way down.
Yeah.
Because we've had different people from different states reach out and say, could you sell us your curriculum and those types of things? And we have those types of opportunities. We're just not there quite yet. Yeah. And I don't know if that's the direction that we want to go at this point.
Yeah.
So we're still baby steps. Yeah. But I have had people say, dream big.
Yeah, I mean,
you can take this all over the country.
You could, right? Roll out in different, I mean, absolutely. And I think the beauty, right? The beauty is to dream wildly and see how it unfolds.
Right.
But not to put a ceiling or a limit on it.
Exactly.
And it all started with faith, and you said like God's intervention.
Yes.
And He'll show the way.
That's exactly right.
This is meant to reach others, right? Nationally, it will.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. Baby steps.
Yeah, baby steps. And you'll be guided to that. It'll flow.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah, when you stop to think, oh my gosh, I have to do what?
Oh, it becomes too big, too fast, right?
Yeah.
So, and and I have a tendency to do that. I'm a dreamer. I am a visionary, and so I can see the big picture of, wow, this could be really amazing. Yeah. And then I have to
reel yourself in. I'm very
a little
similar.
bit at a time. Yes.
Well, I think dreaming big and being a dreamer is liberating, right? There's freedom in not having to. I was never one to color in the lines.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? Like.
Yeah. Let me draw my own picture.
Yeah. And I think it takes having that visionary character to do things. But I always, people are like, well, how do you get things done, or how can you keep moving forward when you have all these ideas all around? And I had my motto in med school, because I wasn't always so disciplined, changed to take action.
Yes.
So all too often I find, we're dreaming and thinking, but we get stuck in that, where do I start? What do I do?
Yes.
Right? Indecision.
Yeah.
And that's crippling. And so, just shifting to, okay, take action. What's the first step?
Yeah.
And from there, then it's just a cascade.
Right. And take your time getting there too.
Yes.
For those that may be listening, that you have big dreams.
Yeah.
Don't let anybody squash those big dreams. But
hold on to them.
Hold on to the dreams. But at the same time, take your time getting there. Yeah. It doesn't have to happen tomorrow.
No.
So,
and I love that. I agreed. So, glow getters listening, I know many of you have big dreams. You want to do all these beautiful, big, bold things, and don't rush the small moments. And it's trust the process and honor your journey, but enjoy the journey, right?
Yes, enjoy the journey. Yes, because then what's the point if you don't?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I love that. So, all right. So, last couple other little fun questions. Sure. So what do you do? You have 5 minutes. I call them my 5-minute glow-ups.
Okay. I'll do my best.
So you have 5 minutes. What do you do to get your heart rate up?
Ooh, I'm a runner. I love to run. I also love yoga, which I know those two don't actually. They kind of go together, right?
So yoga's a good warm-up, and
it is.
And stretch after.
Yeah. Okay. All right. They go together.
That's how I do it.
Yes. And I like strength yoga. So a little bit of cardio in there, and weightlifting and that type of thing with my yoga. But I love to run, and I picked up running after swimming. So I was supposed to swim in college. This is a little side note. So I was supposed to swim in college. I didn't show up.
Oh gosh.
For my first practice. And then a few months later, I went to the pool just for exercise, and I was a breaststroker. And so I was coming down the lane, and I could see the coach standing at the end of the lane. And so I came up to the wall, and she said, weren't you supposed to be swimming for me? I didn't have a scholarship or anything like that. They just wanted me to come and swim for them. And so in my mind, I wasn't held to anything.
Yeah.
And I said, yes, ma'am, I was. And she said, where have you been? And I said, I decided I didn't want to do it. And she said, well, if you're going to come to my pool, then you should be coming to practice. And that next day, I decided I'm going to take up running.
I did not expect it.
I became a runner. Didn't step back, but in that pool again.
Oh, that's funny.
So, yes, that's how I get my heart rate up.
I love it. Okay, give me 1 minute. I want to just make sure this is something happened on the screen, so they'll kind of cut that part out. Okay, we're good.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. The screen changed, though.
Oh.
Okay. All right, so 5-minute glow up question number 2.
Okay.
You have 5 minutes.
Okay.
What do you do to relax?
Ooh.
You're transitioning
5
between
minutes.
5 minutes.
I love taking naps, cat naps.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big lay on the couch, curl up with my blanket. I have a bichon frisé. We talk to him in French. His name is Samson. We love him. So he's big and white and fluffy, and so he's like a big pillow. And so I have my big blanket and I have my big fluffy dog, and I just curl up on the couch and take a nice 10, 15-minute power nap. So if I have 5 minutes, that's probably what I would do. It's just close my eyes, take a few minutes, and just do nothing, which is a very hard thing for me to do because I'm always on the go. And for me to just take a moment and pause and stop and be still and silent is a very hard thing, but it's so good to do. So good for me.
Yeah, I find I take more time. I do a lot of meditation. Just I need some quiet of doing nothing. But I never used to. I didn't know how to. I was always, I 50 million things to do. Taking 5 minutes, I could already get a head start on 3 of them.
Right. That's so true. It really is true. I know. I do the same thing. I have to turn my brain off. Turn it off.
Yes, turn it off. Whether laying down or breathing. Yeah, it's like power off.
Yes.
I'll be back online in just a few minutes. I'm not kidding.
Yeah, I understand that.
It's like I'm going to power off. Okay, power off.
Yes.
Let's go.
Yes. I love it.
So, all right. So, 5-minute glow up number 3.
Ooh. Okay.
So 5 minutes. What do you do for a snack?
Ooh. Oh, my go-tos? If I have sushi in the fridge, I love sushi. I'm obsessed with sushi. In fact, it makes me hungry just thinking about it right now because I haven't had it in like a week. Did you know, side note, if you go to like the click and ship kind of stuff, I don't know if it's called that.
Like on Kroger or something?
Yeah. Click and pick up or whatever it is. You can't get certain things, and sushi is one of those things.
Oh, seriously?
Did not know that.
Not on Instacart?
Not on, well, I don't know. I go to Meijer, so I have no idea.
I was like, hi, Instacart.
But in Meijer, it won't let me do it. So I haven't had sushi because I had to pick up my groceries this week and last week, and so, yes. So sushi is my go-to, I think, because it has the protein and it has all the good stuff in it.
Easy to eat.
Easy to eat. It is. I could eat like a whole thing of sushi. It's so good. But I love sweet potato crackers.
Those are good. Those are really good.
Yeah, they're really good. But like my guilty pleasure is dark chocolate chips. Like the actual.
Okay. Yeah.
So you're supposed to get the chocolate chips because then you're not going to eat as much chocolate, right? Unless you pour an entire bowl of chocolate chips. No, it doesn't work so well.
Yeah. The dark chocolate is supposed to be really good for you.
Okay, that's true. I'll just keep telling myself that.
Polyphenols, flavonoids, right? Good for your skin.
Yes, that is true. That is true.
Blood flow.
Yes. Okay, I'll hear your voice when I'm eating all of my chocolate chips.
Yeah, you're like,
Dr.V said this is good for me, it's good for my skin.
You're like extra serving.
That's right. Be perfect.
I love it. All right, so 5-minute glow up, last one.
Okay.
So you have 5 minutes.
Yes.
What do you do for your skincare routine?
Yeah, so I am very particular about my skin.
Oh, good.
Did not used to be like that.
So do tell more before you share your 5 minutes.
So I have very sensitive eyes for some reason, and so I have to take my mascara off every night. If I do not take my mascara off every night, I get stuff in my eyes while I sleep, if that makes sense, and then I wake up and we have lots of issues. So mascara off has to happen. So I have It's an eye makeup remover. It has a silicone base to it, so it's super gentle for my eyes and for my skin. So I take that off every single night. Just a cleanse, simple cleanse with a little exfoliant and moisturizer. But my favorite product, so I have a microdermabrasion that I love, so that's one of my favorites. But I also have a vitamin C serum. I love vitamin C serum because you can tell if you put it on the night before and then you wake up in the morning, it just, your face glows.
I mean, yeah, it adds a nice coat, but also put it on in the morning.
Really?
Because it protects from UV.
Did not know that.
Yeah, so
this is why you need to come to your dermatologist.
We love vitamin C antioxidants, and they'll work differently in the night, but if you put it on in the day before you put on your SPF, that's going to help with UV protection too.
Did not know that.
Yeah. Little tips, right? Glow up tips.
Learned something new today.
So that's 5 minutes, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's your 5 minute. Okay. Yeah. So if you had all day for your skincare routine.
I would come here. I would get a facial.
Right. Get some laser
done. Spa treatment. We would have a great time.
Yeah, right?
Yes.
I love that. So are there any specific questions you have about glow-ups and skincare for me?
Specific questions. I should ask this just because I work with teenagers and I get asked by not just my own kids, but just children in general who are in those teen years. So what is the best skincare regimen for a student who has acne, let's say?
So I think typically, now there's so many over-the-counter products that you can use, and I definitely think you can get started with a really good over-the-counter routine if you have acne, and if that doesn't work, then definitely come in and see your dermatologist, and we can get you started on prescription things to help. But I would say at a minimum, starting with, so it depends on your skin type. Let's say average person, teen with acne, might more likely be oily, but also a little dry and sensitive. So typically using a gentle cleanser is really helpful. You can do an exfoliating cleanser if you do well with that. I think adding some type of toner can be helpful, especially if you're on the more oily side. And then there's several different like benzoyl peroxide containing topicals that are really good for spot treatments. Things that have salicylic acid is helpful as well. Some moisturizer and sunscreen is great. The only thing I would switch out maybe at night would be to use like one of the over-the-counter like retinols. They have Differin, which is over-the-counter, and that used to be prescription. So that's great to use at night. And then, there's a lot of like different rotating fields and proactive like things that are helpful too. But usually you can get started with one of those, and then usually if that's not working, then you need something a little stronger. Yeah.
Perfect.
And don't mix too many products in at once. Start slowly.
Yes, because don't you feel like, especially when teens are struggling with acne, it's like I'm going to try everything because I just want my skin to be clear.
Yeah, and often with a lot of things, even over the counter, it takes time to see these changes. Plus, you can go through a little bit of a purging stage when you first start them, especially in the first 4 to 6 weeks. It gets worse before it gets better. And some of these products can make your skin dry and irritated, so you do need to build up. And if you overstrip that skin barrier, then and you become dry and sensitive, your body's going to overproduce oil, and then that contributes to more acne.
And then it just becomes a cycle.
Oh, absolutely.
I had the worst skin as a teenager. Worst.
Okay, maybe not the absolute worst.
Okay, it was pretty bad. And I tried everything, and I remember this, I had tried one product and I put it all over my face. I did not listen to my dermatologist who said to take it easy. Yeah. Because I just wanted it to clear out so badly. I ended up stripping it. Yeah. My skin got so dry, and it was this vicious cycle.
I used to be an over-exfoliator.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm a dermatologist.
Yes.
So it's just more like that. We think the more you put on, the better, and more days in a row. But no. Less is more.
take your time.
Yeah. Less is more.
Listen to your doctor.
Yes. And to yourself, your body.
And to yourself. Yes. That's exactly right. Exactly right.
So I love it. Okay, so final 2 questions.
Oh, okay.
Well, one more. I really need to know about classy and sassy.
Okay, so
tell me when you started that, and let's
this is a funny story. So I started this a year ago. Mm-hmm. I started it because my oldest started taking boxing lessons, and private boxing lessons are very expensive. And I just thought, okay, I'm just gonna sell some of these clothes on Facebook, try to make a little extra money. So I ended up selling a lot of my clothes, and I thought, wow, this is I'm actually pretty good at this, and people kind of like it. So I started to do that a little bit more and a little bit more, and then a good friend of mine who is a reseller, she said, you can actually go into the thrift stores and you can purchase, different clothing, and then you can resell it. And so I started sourcing, is what it's called, vintage clothing. Mm-hmm. So going to different places, trying to find specific vintage clothing, and clothing that's really hard to find. And so I started doing that, and then started posting it on Instagram. And I have customers literally all over the United States. And
wow.
So it's been really fun. And I pay for my child's boxing lessons.
And more maybe.
And more, a little extra on the side for mommy. Yes. But really, it's been fairly lucrative in the sense of just taking care, a little side money.
Yeah.
But it's really fun.
Yeah.
So I've done 2 little pop-up markets, and then I have another one coming up in just a few weeks. And
nice.
Yes.
So where will that pop-up market be?
So it's going to be September 1st at Union 12.
Okay.
So
nice.
in Columbia City, and it's myself and 2 other vintage resellers, and it's interesting because Fort Wayne is just starting to come to the vintage market right now. They're just starting to understand it. Yes. But most of my customers are on the East Coast and the West Coast. Okay. And so we're trying to get our Midwest to go, oh, this is really fun stuff, actually. So I still have people, especially within Fort Wayne, I'll wear certain things and people will go, oh.
Like, where's she from?
That should have stayed back in the 80s. That's okay.
So what's been some of the hard to find items that you've loved?
Yeah, so there's this thing that's called a union label. So if you're into looking at clothing and tags and things like that, if you find an item that you think looks vintage, you want to look at the tag. And if it has what's called a union label, and you'll see it because it looks like a little circle and it says union label, if you can find one of those, that's typically sometimes, it just kind of depends on which kind, but a lot of the times it's from the 50s or the 60s. And so finding those kinds of items, especially if they're in good condition, is very rare and very exciting. Okay. So anytime I find something and it has a union label on it, I'm always like, score! I found one!
Like,
exactly. So, and they're a little bit pricier because they're hard to find.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing.
Little tip.
So, classy and sassy. And then where do we find you on social media?
So if you go to Instagram, it's just classy, sassy, vintage thrift.
Okay, perfect. And then for RespectTeam, where do we find you?
RespectTeam, that can be, actually, it's probably easier to go to our website for the RespectTeam, which is just www.respectteam.com.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So glow getters, definitely check out Classy, Sassy, and RespectTeam. And for those of you that are here in Fort Wayne, we, taking care of our youth is so important, and definitely check them out. So final 2 questions for you.
You keep saying final 2.
And then I'm like, oh, I really want to ask her this. So
okay,
we'll ask me that now.
Okay, yes. I like to talk. It's great.
So, all right. You have reached the end of your life. You've lived a full, long life. At the end of your life, you've done everything you've wanted to do, accomplished so much, had so many beautiful experiences, brought so many smiles, and really have touched thousands, millions of teenagers' lives.
That would be amazing. Yes.
You have one gift that you can leave the world.
Ooh.
For for us to read, find, do, whatever it is, what gift would you leave?
Oh my goodness.
I came up with it myself.
I really love that, but I feel like I need 2 weeks to think about it.
All right.
So we're going to make an appointment. I'm just kidding. 1 month from now. Just kidding. Just kidding.
You know, I was asked that. I had someone interview me on the podcast, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to share just yet.
Yeah, that's a really hard one. So, one gift. Oh, man. That is so difficult. So there's a couple things that I have been doing. I know this is going to sound really strange, but so my dad, he passed from cancer. He was 55 when he passed. So that's only almost 10 years from now for me.
Yeah.
So I think because he passed at such a young age, I'm always conscious of things like that. One of the things that he left behind for us, he wrote me a letter, and he wrote my brother a letter, and he wrote my mom a letter. And so something special like that, that's what I get from my dad. And I can see his handwriting, and I can read what it is that he had to say and those types of things. And so because of that, I think I have journals, and so I have a journal specifically dedicated to my girls. I have a journal specifically dedicated to my husband. I have a journal specifically dedicated to my mom. So just things like that I think just because I have thought about that and that possibility of we don't know when our last days are going to be.
We do not know.
So I like having something like that left behind, my words, my writing,
I love
that
it.
they can just read and
read through.
Yeah.
Wow, that's very beautiful.
Thank you.
That's very beautiful. I love the multiple journals. I have multiple too.
Okay, good.
not in that way. But
Yeah.
But yeah, that's very beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And so, final question.
Yes. We'll see if it's actually the final.
Right? What does unleash your glow mean to you?
Ooh. Wow. Okay. So something we didn't get to talk about was the women's network. So
Let's
something
segue and talk about
yeah,
that.
let's talk about that for just a second because it kind of goes with this. So women's network here in Fort Wayne.
What is it?
It's bringing together CEOs. It could be a nonprofit director like myself. It could be a nurse. It could be a doctor. It could be a retiree, it could be a student, or just somebody looking for their next job. So it's
any age,
anyone,
any
yes,
sector.
any age, any person, any sort of situation that they might be in within their life. But it's just bringing women together to connect them, to inspire them, and to empower them. So that's the whole point of that. And we have different speakers that come and different events that we do. So our speaker today, she was motivating us and inspiring us and teaching us just more about ourselves and the things in our lives that we use to sabotage ourselves. It was very, very good and very eye-opening. And so it's really just helping you to get more in tune with who you are so that you can be a better person and then also a better whatever it is that you're doing in your life.
I love it.
So that's the whole purpose of the Women's Network. So I think for me, unleashing that glow just means being that example to not just the women that I get to empower, but my own women in my own household, my young women and my teenager. But also just our teenagers that I get to work with on a regular basis within my husband's occupation at the church, but also within our schools too, and just unleashing that glow and really helping them to understand you could have been through anything within your life. I've been through hard things in my life. So you could have gone through something hard in your life. It doesn't define you, but it can actually define who you are for the future in the sense of really creating you to be this amazing person that can do amazing things.
I love it.
So
and it's redefining.
It really is.
Because often things that have happened define us, they hold us bound. But instead, how can we use that as a catapult to to catapult us forward.
Yeah,
right?
it's taking that, we say taking your pain and using it for a greater purpose.
Yeah.
So once you figure out how to take that pain and use it for a greater purpose, it no longer has a hold of you.
Absolutely.
But you can actually do great things with it.
Yeah. And I find, a lot of it is shifting out of that thinking into the feeling phase. And that's been a big shift for me, at least, with navigating myself, the world, is understanding, well, instead of what am I thinking, shifting to asking myself, what am I feeling?
Yes.
Where am I feeling this? And have I felt this before? And I'd be like, oh yeah, I felt this when this happened. And then you're like, oh, right? And well, how do I want to feel? And shifting from an emotion that I don't want to feel to an emotion I want to feel. And I don't have to do that with any thinking.
Yes.
It's fun because it's feeling, except when the emotions are heavy.
When that lid is flipped.
Yeah. Right? Why am I bawling crying right now?
But I get it.
And I'm like, oh, I remember.
I remember when I felt this way just yesterday. I think yoga, movements, therapy. Sure.
And so we hold so much tension in our body, right?
It's true.
So I find with yoga, there's they are healing sessions.
Yes.
You're releasing tension.
Right.
And yeah,
it's so true. Yes.
So I want to circle back right before we end. So you mentioned the speaker today was talking about how we sabotage ourselves. What were some of the things that she shared?
Yes, so her name is Dr. Crystal Walker. She's here in Fort Wayne. She is actually over at Sweetwater Sound, and she is amazing. So little plug for her. But she actually has a website that you can go to, and you can take a quiz and learn how you self-sabotage.
Wow.
So for me, it's called a hyperachiever. So I don't feel like I'm achieving enough, and so I sabotage myself by doing too many things, and then I burn out. So that's how I sabotage myself. Some people might be more of an avoider. They get so overwhelmed, and so they avoid everything. Some people might be a people pleaser, so they sabotage by they have certain things that they want to do, but they're afraid of how other people are going to react. And so then they'll go to those other people and they want to please them, and whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. And then they miss out on the things for themselves. And so there's lots of different categories. Those are just 3 of the categories. So she taught us about each of those. And then she taught us, one of the statements that I took away from today is taking your buts, which I think is funny, taking your buts and turning it to yes and. So instead of every time somebody says, oh, you should do this, this, and this, but instead go, yes, and this, and this. And so it's really turning your thinking more positive so that the ideas are actually exciting instead of going negative every single time something new comes your way.
I love that. And it's something that, I've tried to implement that, but you catch yourself, right? When you're going through things. But when you pause and rephrase, I find with the but and statements, it takes it away from something that's limiting.
Yes.
Right? And instead of pointing fingers at but, you're saying, but, I don't like blah, blah, blah. Instead, you're saying, and I really think, It doesn't negate, it doesn't take away. Yeah, I love that.
It makes you excited about what's going to happen.
Yeah, so glow getters, no more buts.
Yes.
Switch it to
Put those buts aside. Only yes and ands here.
Perfect. All right, glow getters. So this has been an amazing episode. We've had so much fun.
Yes, it's a good time.
A lot of laughter. This is why we're here. So any final words you have for us?
Oh, just thank you so much for letting me come and talk and share about the Respect Team and share about Classy Sassy and about the Women's Network, and just being so open to this conversation. And thanks for what you're doing with Glow Getters too. I think it's really awesome.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So this is a wrap, Glow Getters. Make sure to follow along on Instagram. And if you're not subscribed to our newsletter, make sure to do so. And if you love this episode and what we're doing, we would love for you to subscribe, rate, and leave us an honest review. And if you have any questions or things you'd like to see, make sure to reach out and leave us a message. All right, until next time, guys.